All right, we are recording. Thanks so much for taking your time, Adam. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
First of all, can you give us a rundown of what happened with the select board meeting earlier this week?
Absolutely. So on Monday evening, March 23rd, we conducted our first fully remote select board meeting via Zoom in great partnership with ACMi. We were able to broadcast it live on ACMi and also stream it at acmi.tv. And I would say, considering it was our first try, the meeting went very well, conducted well by the chair. We had over, at one point, 89 residents logged into the Zoom. So I think it actually enabled pretty tremendous public participation. And we went through a pretty significant number of issues, or a number of significant issues. First, the board voted affirmatively to postpone the April 4th town election. As this crisis has continued to demonstrate, there was late breaking news right up until before the select board meeting, and we learned that both the House, Senate, and the governor approved the legislation that would allow cities and towns to delay or postpone their elections. So the board voted to postpone, but will need to vote again next Monday at a meeting that will be scheduled on what date it will fall on. So as part of their vote last night, they voted that it would happen on either June 6th or 13th, but no sooner. So we know that from the board's vote that we have likely what is going to shape up to be at least a 2-month delay or postponement before the town election goes forward.
All right, and you also postponed, well, you at least approved, or the select board did, they approved a memo from John Leone to postpone town meeting from April 27th to May 27th, but you want town meeting to take place after Election Day, correct?
Yeah, so this is sort of one of those interesting quirks in the way the statutes work. So the moderator currently, under statute, has the ability to postpone town meeting for up to 30 days based on a public safety emergency. Now, there is legislation pending up on Beacon Hill that would expand that language to include a public health emergency, though our current interpretation is that a public safety emergency still qualifies under what we're dealing with today. And what the moderator said last night is he wants to use the full flexibility of the law, but he can't, if he announces it today, the 30-day clock starts ticking today. So he wants to officially postpone it on April 27th until May 27th. And he'll be sending out a letter to town meeting members, and we're going to make this as widely known as possible. He can only do it in 30-day increments, or 30-day increments or less.
Gotcha.
So he will, based on his commitments last night, he will postpone on April 27th until May 27th. And then based on the desire expressed by both the moderator and the select board and residents who participated, he will then almost certainly postpone again until a date after the town election date.
All right, and Patriots Day is canceled, not postponed, correct?
The Patriots Day parade this year is canceled, unfortunately.
All of these dates that I'm hearing, it certainly lends credence to the fact that it looks as though we are going to be extending this April 6th, April 7th deadline for schools, things like that. Do you see that extension going well into the deep in April, maybe May, possibly even June?
Honestly, I do. Decisions haven't been made yet. We haven't, frankly, with our leadership team, we have not discussed a further closure yet. So I want to be clear that we're not making any announcements. But when we continue to read the science, hear from experts, it does seem to suggest that we're probably talking about an additional month or more of significant social distancing, of which school closures are probably a part of that. So I would say over the next week, you'll likely see Arlington and a number of other communities start to talk a little bit more about what that horizon or what that landscape is going to look like in terms of closures after the April 7th date.
Now, it looks as though you're certainly behind Governor Baker's state of emergency. What differences do you see in the state of emergency in Arlington as opposed to, let's say, last week?
So we, I think we have been ahead of the curve on this. We closed schools before the governor announced it. We put more restrictions in place in terms of a stay-at-home, or at least mostly stay-at-home advisory before the governor announced it. And this week, or even yesterday, we announced some restrictions that went further than what the governor announced. Primarily because of the seriousness with which we're taking this, but also because of the number of cases in Arlington and the several biogen contacts that were the start of the issue in Arlington with the coronavirus. So we announced yesterday we've closed the dog park down at Thorndike Park. We've closed tennis courts. We've closed basketball courts. We're actually bolting 2x6s to all of the basketball rims so that they're not usable. Feels incredibly draconian, but these are the times that we're dealing with. We're also putting tighter restrictions in place on takeout food. The governor's order allows for takeout food, but we are not allowing people to actually go into the takeout restaurant. We want delivery or curbside pickup. We want to minimize. We want people to be able to accept payments online so that we're minimizing human interaction when takeout is put in place. So we'll continue to look at it as days go forward. We'll see what further restrictions might need to be put in place, but we're very pleased the governor made the announcement. We all feel that a uniform regional announcement is important so that people understand that, you know, they don't have to stay in their house. They can safely go for a walk while practicing social distancing. They can go to the grocery store. They can go to the pharmacy to get essentials. But otherwise, though it's challenging, it's really important for people to stay in their homes as much as possible.
What are you hearing from the businesses in Arlington? We pretty much just went through the first week of this, the new order, basically, until things change. I talked to some business owners. They're very concerned, just like everybody else. I mean, this affects everybody. But for those businesses that have leases, bills to pay, overhead to pay, what are you hearing from local businesses in, let's say, the last 5-6 days? I'm sure you've received some feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a mix of concern, as you just described. People are obviously very concerned about what the next few weeks will bring, how much longer it will go, what the impact will be on their businesses. But I'm also hearing from them an understanding of the seriousness of the times and the need for them to protect themselves and protect their workers as much as possible so that we can slow the spread or stop the spread of this virus. So it does seem as though, on the whole, the business community in Arlington is definitely concerned, but understanding of the need for the precautions that have been put in place.
How about schools as far as distance learning? I mean, has anything kicked in as far as that's concerned? Have you heard anything from the Arlington school system as far as students, maybe just learning from home and keeping safe?
So I do know that the school department is kicking up their efforts for distance learning. They're distributing over 400 or about 400 Chromebooks. They started on Monday, continuing today to students that don't have access to technology in their homes. And I know they're slowly rolling out. They're slowly rolling out as best possible ways to continue to engage with the students. And I just received an email that I was copied on to school administration, thanking them for their efforts from a parent. So I know that will continue to roll out and become more robust as the weeks go forward. But I do know the school department's making their best efforts to try to keep students engaged while they're home.
I noticed you also posted some signs along the Minuteman Bikeway. We've been hearing some people in Arlington concerned that they see some people holding hands. They're not practicing social distancing. They're not really in single file. What are your concerns along there? And when did you put those signs out? They came up pretty fast.
Yeah, I want to say we put up those signs on Friday.
Okay.
And we've been hearing from a number of residents concerned about the way people are behaving on the bike path. And, those signs are pretty detailed in the instructions they give on how people should be conducting themselves on the bike path. Unfortunately, we still keep hearing from people who are concerned about the way people are conducting themselves on the bike path. So, I'll repeat the message now. Try to walk single file, staying 6 feet apart, avoid congregating. I mean, if you're walking down the bike path with a family member who you live with, that that you're in regular contact with, I think you can walk side by side and hold hands, but don't get too close to people that are walking in front of you, right? We want to keep people separated so that we break these lines of transmission so that the spread of the virus is slowed. So, and people need to remember, just because it's outside, there's no science suggesting that being outside slows the transmission. So I know I would even say before this all started, I would have thought being outside, you're safer from coming down when someone's cold or whatever they might be dealing with.
That's the universal thought, yeah.
Yeah, but the science is not suggesting that that is true. So keeping your social distance at least 6 feet away from people that are not in your immediate family unit living in your household is really key to keeping yourself and others safe.
And what problems, really this is the first week everybody's enduring this. What are some of the problems as a town manager that you've run into in this first week? Town hall is closed. You have a skeletal crew. I'm sure you're on the phone constantly. What problems have you run into or what changes have happened in the last week for you?
So I'm working almost entirely remotely. I've been into town hall only a few times. Amazingly, I'm on a text chain with some of my colleagues in other communities, and we all agree that even though we're remotely, we're working more than we ever worked when we were in the office. And yet at the end of the day, you don't necessarily feel as though you've accomplished anything. And I think to some degree, that's the definition of crisis management. You're not producing new work, but rather you're just managing what's coming at you on a day-to-day basis. I would say we have definitely adapted. Town offices now starting today will be closed to the public entirely. Well, they had been closed last week. They'll be continue to be closed. Even our one-person staffing in non-essential offices is going down to 0 staffing. People are still going to be checking their voicemails and emails from home. We're only staffing the treasurer's office, to some degree the clerk's office, IT, and payroll. Those are the essential town office functions that we're staffing. We're keeping inspections going on a very limited basis with precautions being taken, and we're keeping DPW on a very minimal staffing with more of an on-call operation to make sure we can keep things running as best possible. So I guess in all of that, I would just add, the staff and the team have been incredible. The rapid rate at which they've adopted using the Zoom platform to continue to do work together. The comptroller's office has already put us on a DocuSign format, so the multiple contracts that I would normally be signing on a day-to-day basis, I'm now signing electronically. So the team from top to bottom has adapted very quickly, and people are pinching in roles that their job description might not read in terms of our response to this pandemic, and it's really been great to see how people have responded.
And is there anything you'd like to add, Adam, of what you'd like to tell the people of Arlington, or is there anything that we haven't covered?
I guess I would continue my message that I sent out via the Code Red reverse 911 call last Friday. And I know I got some positive feedback, but also some criticism that it was a bit of a stern message, but it was intended that way. This is very serious. We're seeing very sobering numbers coming out of the Boston hospitals, particularly MGH, in terms of our curve not Arlington's curve, but the regional curve of patients being admitted suffering from COVID-19. And it's very true that the actions we take today, taking all of this social distancing very seriously and avoiding contact with others, it really is going to save lives. And, whether it be yourself, your spouse, your children, making sure your whole family understands this message is really important. It sounds simple, but just a group of kids playing basketball together and touching the same ball and backing each other down for a layup, we can't be doing that. And I know it sounds draconian, but we need to take this serious for at least the next 2 weeks until the governor's order is lifted. And then we'll see where the curve is at. We'll see if we've done enough to flatten the curve for now and see if we can lift some of these restrictions. But the more serious we take it now, the better off we're going to be 2 weeks from now.
And the closer we can go back to the basketball courts and the fields and the Minuteman Bikeway.
Exactly.
All right, Adam Chaplain, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. You stay safe.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jeff. You too.